of intentions and distractions, I'll kick it off. My intention today is I would really like to explain this, what we're calling the CommonOps, what I've been calling the CommonOps team, this proposal, and then answer any questions people have, and just get some feedback, and lock this down. It's time to move. So those are my intentions. Distractions, not really much. I'll pass it to Acid.
Thank you, Gideon. My intentions are just to keep tuned. I have been some days off, but now I'm back. So I want to see what's up. Just to be okay with everyone, so we can work together. And distractions, I have no distractions. Yeah, and I'll pass it to Bear.
Thank you, Acid. Yeah, I think that's the same intention for me to sync on this idea of consolidating efforts and this unified team, and going over the document that you shared, Gideon, and yeah, just trying to really nail it down in the best possible way that really benefits the commons. And yeah, I don't really have any distractions right now, so I'll just pass it to Maxwell.
Hey everyone. Similar. Missed the last one or two with some conflicts, so excited to hear about progress and get back up to speed, and no real distractions today. I will pass it to Rex.
Hey, cool. I'm looking forward to report on the progress on the couple of things I've been doing over the last 2 days. It hasn't been as much as the report from last week, and kind of hear what everyone else has to say. How about you, Mitch?
Yeah, just here to listen and see what y'all are up to and stay abreast. And I'll pass it to Tam.
Intentions, it just feels like these conversations are getting better, and we're starting to see, like, I feel like we're weeks away to being like, okay, we've got it. Like we're back, like the train is back on the track. So just happy to help in whatever way I can, to be honest. And distractions, I'm moving in 5 days, so it's a whole list of stuff that has to be done. Gas, electricity, water, that kind of basic essential needs. And I'll pass back to you, Gideon, to pass on, please. Thank you.
Livy, do you want to go?
Sure. Yeah, intentions to, I think, similar to Tim, to support the train that keeps going however I can, and no distractions right now. And I'll pass to Rex.
I think Rex already went. NT, did you go?
No.
Okay.
Intentions, yeah, just as everyone else, see what's up and advance on this agenda, on everything we're doing right now. And distractions, I'm waiting for something to be delivered to my house, and so I may have to drop off for just a minute to get it. But yeah, back to you, Gideon.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to jump into just a couple of quick updates. I think Rex is going to take like 5-10 minutes to give us this update on what's going on with Dune Analytics, and then he did some work with the TEC Google Drive, and then I want to talk about next week's community call. I've got an idea I want to run by everybody. And then the main thing is just jumping into this CommonOps team proposal. So is there anything else that people, that's important that we need to add to the agenda today?
I mean, it's something that Zep asked. He asked if he should post to the forum the document for the retirement of the sunsetting of the transparency group. And I said, maybe let's just see what we think. So should each working group post the sunset doc themselves, or we bundle these three that are happening simultaneously into one post? It's a minor question, really, but.
Okay. All right. Well, I put that towards the end. And if we have some time, we'll do that. If not, we can just do it in the channel. All right. So Rex, do you want to take it?
Sure. So, on the three fronts, so as you may be aware, I have set up a Google Drive folder so that we can coordinate with Google Documents. In future, I've given a number of us on this call access, and I'm also keeping backups in case anybody turns awry and deletes that folder. So I have a second copy. And at the moment, I've done it mostly manually, but I may set something up in a schedule, say maybe once a week or something. So just to keep a copy, it's just standard procedure, it's standard procedure in data stuff. Yes, so that's that one. And there is an archive folder, so if you do have any kind of documents that you would like to put on there, just contact myself, Gideon, Tam, Lily, Nate, into your bet. Well, basically everyone in the court has it if you want, as an Mitch, if you want access to the root, I think you're a trusted member, so I can give you that too. And if there's any questions with that one, I might set up a process and something more formal as to like who to give access to or not, but that'll probably be bundled with the credentials management process, so not now. Okay. Cool. Next, on credentials management, NT's been identifying the members that would be best to prune. That document we'll probably provide that before next Tuesday, so that then we can start off from a cleaner slate to kind of build back up. So that one's still ongoing. And regarding Dune Analytics, I have put a card on Notion. I will move it. I haven't moved stuff to Clarity yet. I will do so. But essentially, the problem is Dune is going to stop updating blocks on the SQL engine that we're running, because it's the old SQL engine V1. And so in order to continue with our financial reporting, let's say community reporting for Dune V2, we'll need to port over all of the queries from the engine V1 to the engine V2. Now, this essentially is like switching programming languages, because a lot of things are different between Spark SQL and Postgres. The tables are different. The databases are set up in a different way. So when we asked JH for a quote, he's said $1,000, basically doing one from scratch. And I can do this. I can do this cheaper because I'm all about public goods, and I just enjoy it. So, but there has been questions as to which queries, whether we should port every single query, whether we should port just some queries, whether we should scrap it all together and kind of do something that's better for the community rather than what we have right now, which is mainly kind of internal focused. Like all of the queries were for us; they weren't for transparency. Really, they weren't built for other people to really see, follow. So I will also share the document. It's a bit scrappy at the moment, but I will share the document with stewards, and I just wanted to basically, sorry, I'm not going to do it for free because it will take a lot of my time, and I may also ask someone else to kind of review the code so that it's optimized. But I want it to be valuable, so I will I will send the document in the stewards, and if you could just kind of see between these three alternatives, passing all of the queries through, selecting certain queries which I've taken a look at. I don't know. I'll pose the three alternatives, or scrapping it and making it outward focus. So doing more on governance, as I had already started to do, and kind of less on, and yeah, so more on governance, more on token distribution, more on kind of the stuff that actually matters. So I will send that document through, but I've gone over my time, I see. So yes, you'll see I'll send all these documents at async.
Awesome. Thank you, Rex. Any questions for Rex? We'll have a chance to go over in detail. Like, he's going to send the plan out, and so you'll be able to look it over more carefully. And I just a shout out to Rex, man. He's just been on fire, doing like all kinds of stuff over the last couple of weeks. I mean, really, Rex, thank you. You're doing a great job, man. Okay, so real quick, at the end of the last call, Tam asked, like, "Hey, are we gonna do a community call next week?" And I had an idea. I just wanted to float by people, just as kind of a way to maybe test out. I think the thing that we should do is test out some stuff, right, and just see what works, right? So the thing I was thinking is, I just have all these questions still about the kind of the basic building blocks of the TEC, like how the ABC really works. More actually, the bigger thing for me right now is like the common pool, like how does Gardens really work? Like how does all this stuff connect? And so I asked Griff yesterday if he would be willing to just kind of do a Q&A session in the call next week, and just kind of use that as a way to just for all of us to ask questions. And Mitch, maybe you can help out too. It doesn't have to be just it could be anybody, right? But I was thinking just like having like a little round table, but have Griff kind of lead it. And maybe what I would do is ask the questions and ask people for questions in advance. But just use this time as a way to kind of educate ourselves for especially for those who are kind of new still. Like, how does all this stuff fit together? So that's my idea. What do people think about that as a kind of a test of like, because we could do similar things, like actually, Mitch, we could do something similar for praise, like what's really going on with praise, how does it all work? And like, I think there are people in the community would probably like to learn that too, but not this time, but maybe for future. So what are people's thoughts on that?
I really like that. Could we get the TEA to kind of put us on their calendar, put our community event on their calendar, so that we kind of involve people on this? Because I do think that the people doing the course would be interested in this in the format that you're talking about.
Yeah, that sounds good. Is this a way to get new engagement for new people to get to the Discord server? Because if we do it right now, nobody is going to enter. I mean, it's going to be the same people, the same we are here. So I don't. Maybe we need to do like a little campaign before that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think one of our issues for the community calls is more like getting people into the door than actually the content itself. I think the learning how the technological pieces of the TC works is great, but it's also that question of how and if we want to do that outreach, and and like Rex said, probably get people from the academy, all of that.
Absolutely, I love the idea of us experimenting, and also I just like the idea of what are your questions about the bonding curve or about praise, or I don't know, however we want to really focus that. And to the second point that was raised by you, Acid, maybe we change the forum. Maybe it's not on Discord. Maybe it's a Twitter space. And I guess maybe we can even question, like, do we need to have the community call on our Discord server? And if we're experimenting, do we also experiment with the forum that we use?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, go ahead, Acid.
No, yeah, that could work. The Twitter space. Yeah.
I like that idea too of moving to
Fire.
Twitter. Although
Okay.
Twitter is gonna die.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me ask this. Do we think that we could pull that off by next week, moving to Twitter? So two things. One, it's, we can do it the way that we've been doing it, just internally, and have it be, and just try the new content. And try to just kind of build these up slowly over time, maybe do some invites and do some more, like maybe check in. Like there's some ways of doing that, and then doing the Twitter space a little bit later, or do we just bite the bullet and do the whole thing? Thoughts?
I think I'm all for radical change in this. I think that moving to Twitter is probably better. I think engagement's a bit better. We're going to get higher numbers doing it on Twitter, and it'll be easier for people to connect. And if we do want to relay we can always have someone kind of sharing their voice and video into the community chat, so that the couple of us the hate Elon Musk can still like listen in.
Gideon, you're on mute.
Yeah, you didn't want to hear what I just said. No, thanks. I'm going to make a recommendation, which is that I don't think it's going to be possible for us to pull that off by next Thursday. With all the other things that are going on, we're just going to stress ourselves out. So either we skip next week and then try to do a good job. Like maybe what we do is say, look, it's better to do a good job and get people to actually come in and join us than to do this just for the sake of the ritual of doing it. And because last time we had 6 people. So I mean, I radically questioning some of these things. I mean, if we're going to do that, maybe we give ourselves a little bit of time and actually do it right. Would people be up for that?
I would agree to take some more time, but not because of not because of us not being able to do the Twitter space itself, because that's even easier than doing it on Discord, because you don't even have to do any slides or anything. It's more casual, but probably to sort of like we said yesterday in the creation service sync, like try to come up with a more cohesive communication strategy and feed that kind of Twitter space content on that. Because I think it's also a timely it's also on time for the launch of the creation service. Because right now we probably have more to offer on Twitter than on Discord, than trying to get people on the Discord and then have nothing to see. But with the creation service, putting stuff on Twitter, other strategy on Twitter as well, and then Twitter Spaces, I think we can have something really cool going on.
Okay, let's do this. Who would be interested? I mean, I'm happy to either facilitate that, moderate that panel, or if somebody else is like excited to do that, just raise your hand. But let's do this. I don't want to take any more time on this call because I really want to get to this next topic. So any volunteers who, Acid, we'd probably need you to drive the, if we're going to do a Twitter space, we definitely would need you. Are you game?
To host it?
Yeah, to just help organize it and promote it.
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay. And
So
anybody else?
This is for the gardens one, or which one?
We'll figure that out.
Yeah.
We'll figure that out.
The gardens account. They are very kind.
Sure. We'll figure out the details of it off of this call, but what I want to get right now is who else would be interested in helping to plan this? Anybody else?
Maybe Miguel. He runs the One Hype radio, and he has some experience with hosting stuff. So I don't know. He can help us too.
Okay. I mean, I don't think this will be just about gardens, but I don't know. We'll figure that out. Anybody else interested in helping out with this?
If there's anything I can do, I'm happy to give a hand.
Okay. I think that's enough. And we'll post. And so what we're saying is not next week. We're gonna take a break next week, and we're gonna try to get this for the following the next meeting, and just shift to that and try to do a little bit of organizing to get some more folks attending. Okay, is that cool? Okay, all right. Let's. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So on we go. So my first question. So we're going to go into this CommonOps team proposal, and Tam. Tam and I were talking about this, and I think it makes sense for Tam to provide a little bit of context to kind of how does this fit into where we've come from and all that kind of stuff. So before I dive into the kind of the details of this plan, Tam, do you want to just help us get that context?
Yeah, with pleasure. So Gideon and I were chatting yesterday and talking about this as a proposal, and it occurs to me that if you just see this proposal, it's not really clear where it comes from or some of the context. So I thought it was important just to sort of share that. And maybe also when we share this proposal for advice process with the community, we can also sort of include some of this context too. I think most people are pretty aware, but just to go over a few points. In August, Nate and I posted the Stewards Transformation proposal on the forum. And this came about after the Stewards' second request for funding didn't seem to meet with community's conviction. And I did take it off eventually, rather than sort of let it sit and try to build up conviction over many months, because it became evident to me at least that, the overall community was not in favor of continuing to, exceed on operations what we make in revenue, which is very little. So the TEC was spending a lot on operations. Different working groups were requesting different funding, but no money was really coming in, including with the stewards, of course. So I removed the request for funding, and we started having conversations about how we could transform the stewards working group. And as we started to have these conversations, it became clear that it was more of how do we transform the organization, not just the stewards working group. The stewards working group is one component of the larger organization, and there's a scale mismatch, right? So we started, so each of the working groups were sort of challenged to think about what was really mission critical from their working group, to try to see how we could right size so that the tasks that were mission critical to the TEC continued to be funded, but the funding wouldn't essentially deplete the common pool reserve in a runway of less than 12 months if we were to continue as we were going. So a lot of I've said this a few times now, but if we were a traditional nonprofit organization, we'd probably have 2 full-time people or 3 full-time people until we were able to actually support the staffing requirements by the amount of revenue that comes in. And we probably should try to that should be the target, right? That we're funding ourselves by whether it's the tributes from the augmented bonding curve or any other source, rather than depleting the commons pool, which is really meant for token engineering projects and education and software and tools. So each of the working groups, this is sort of where this sort of transformation strategy and planning started happening. Gideon had so many ideas from, he brought he's been quarterbacking this and doing a lot of the critical thinking around how we can organize the different critical responsibilities in the working groups, and this sort of idea of this one team came together, this CommonOps team, which is this proposal today. So it's sort of like this idea of the stewards working group transformation really turned into like this organizational transformation, and working groups started to see that they maybe didn't need to continue as a working group, that some of them were doing one or two things, and that could all be rolled in together into one team that does these things. So like a tightly coordinated team that are highly focused on a shared objective together, rather than, we had like 10 different working groups and 15 different stewards who were maybe had focus diffused and instead of like really focused together. So so that, I guess that's kind of it. It's, we're sort of coalescing towards this, which is like this CommonOps team or whatever the name is, but it's a few people and are responsible for the most critical functions of the TEC. And I guess it's also worth saying, I think the way we do this is really important too, and that we continue to sort of, follow the polycentric governance model, which is what we're doing, right? We're having a lot of advice process, putting together a proposal, having, the active contributors and stewards really advice process that before we advice process it with the community, and eventually have a cultural vote or a snapshot vote, on-chain vote, so that token holders can vote on this direction the same way that they voted on the stewards transformation proposal in the forum, and then on snapshot as well. So that's it. I hope that was a good enough context setting. Before I pass back to Gideon, is there anyone who wants to ask any questions? Okay, I'll pass back to Gideon.
Thanks, Tam. Yeah, so this has been kind of it feels like it's been about, for me, it feels like it's been about 4 months, but it's really been about a month and a half. It's important to say that this was not actually my idea. There's been a few people who've been kind of behind the scenes, kind of thinking about this stuff, like NT, Rex, Bear, Nate, kind of in some cases on their own thinking these kinds of things. And you can kind of see, like, in a way, this is kind of what wants to happen. Like the working groups, we see a number of working groups are kind of like dissolving of their own accord. People are leaving. And so it's, in some ways, this is kind of, there's a natural momentum that's moving us in this direction. Let me move over to the document. I'm gonna assume that if you really want to understand the details, you'll dig into this document yourself, and you feel free to comment. So what I'm going to do right now is just provide kind of like a step-by-step, probably just take like 10 minutes, okay, just to go through the major points. Tam touched on some of the reasons for this, and rather than, my screen's still up, so you can read this part. I'll just, these bullets, rather than me reading them out loud, you can read them. Can everybody see that all right? I'm assuming so. So these were the drives, like, what are we actually trying to accomplish here? Reducing operating costs, we'll talk about that in a sec. But it's also just like, it's a lot about coordination and cohesion. And trying to make it easier to get things done. So the basic functions, the idea is that we have one team where nearly all of the paid contributors, and by that what I mean is the people who are getting regular payment, regular salaries, I don't know what we call it, but like that we try to put all of those people who are doing the ongoing operations of the TEC, and the exception here is rewards working group. So Mitch is still doing his thing over there. It's working. So in this case, because this would be a small team, and we don't want to have like a bunch of like mini little departments within this one thing. Like it's going to be important for this team to be able to kind of swarm. And what I mean by that is, we want people to be able to not just do one thing. Like, you need to be able to flex and flow to the demands of what's called for in any given moment. So it's likely that people will probably have certain kind of like functional areas that they will gravitate towards, and there will be some functions that we'll probably want to have like backup coverage for. So critical functions, we don't want to just have it in one person's hand. We probably want to like cross train so that people can cover each other if they want to go on vacation or whatever. Let's see. Let's go to the next section here. So the idea is to basically kind of have these functional clusters. Okay, so that's what this list is, and that's all the work that we were doing over the last 2 weeks, trying to identify from like a bottoms-up perspective. Like we did a lot of work, like identifying all of the kind of the urgent and important tasks and workflows that we do, and then we went back and I mapped it to some earlier work I'd done, and this seems like this is a pretty good set of categories. Now, just to be clear, that doesn't mean that we're going to have like one person doing contributor coordination and project management, one person doing strategic planning. No, it's just that this is kind of taken from this kind of management structure. It's not really management structure, but it's like a coordination structure called holacracy. And the idea is that you create these kind of functional containers that is where we put all of our workflows, right? So we'll go through and in the partner relations thing, or let's take finance and accounting, because that's a clearer case, or technology support, that's even clearer case, right? We've been going through all of the kind of the main functional processes, like the organizational processes that we need to keep doing on a regular basis, and we're just ticking those off. We're like going through and identifying all of those. So in that container, the technology support container will include all those workflows, right? Now, then after that is done, and we'll be doing this over time. We're not going to get all of this done day one, but we'll go through and over time be filling out all of these kind of critical workflows. And then the idea will be to have individuals to make sure that all those critical ones have at least one person who is responsible for doing that workflow. And so the idea is that we'll be able to have more flexibility this way, so that somebody an individual can move across these different containers. But we want to make sure that all the critical functions in those containers are taken care of. This last point here is, is there a question?
Yeah, I have a question. So you said one person for each one of those topics? There are 11 topics there.
No, we would not have one person for each one of those topics. What we would have is, so those containers are just like in a document someplace. They're just like the institutional knowledge of the TEC, a place where we can store all of our workflows and make sure that we're not dropping anything. But each one of those workflows, so like in the case of technology support, you would see credential management would be one of the workflows, and Rex would have his name assigned to that, right? He would be responsible for that function. Does that make sense?
Person would be responsible for multiple of those functions?
Correct. Yep. So Rex might be, he would probably be doing some of the accounting part, like the data part of that. He might be doing some other stuff around economic development or around some of the service operations as well. Bear might be doing some functions in the contributor coordination and project management. Enti might be doing some of that. You might have, but they might be doing stuff in other areas as well. So it's really a way of load balancing and making sure that we've got all of the basic functions covered, and that we're not locking people into like being like, I am the community organizer, I'm the partner relations person, nobody else can do this stuff. No, it's like, it gives us a little bit more flexibility, especially with a small team. That's going to be important. Does that make sense?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. This next paragraph is basically, as Tam was saying, this is kind of an overall organizational transformation that this is like the first step in this. The stewardship, we're still kind of partway through the stewardship transition. That is, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's probably some more organizational transformation work that's going to be coming down the pike. Regardless of what we call that, this role, what I am suggesting is that I will step up and be kind of like a servant leader that acts like a steward. I don't know what we would call this role, but it would be pretty much what I'm doing in Sampo right now, which is trying not to get too much in the way of people actually doing the work, but being the person who's there to kind of like be a coach and help nudge things forward when they get stuck, that kind of stuff. Okay, what does this look like? What we're talking about is 3 full-time equivalent positions. So that doesn't mean 3 positions. It means like 3 40-hour positions. But they would be spread over probably 5 to 6 people, something like that. The idea is that for these positions, we don't want to have people who are doing like 5 hours a week. We really want to have people who are pretty dedicated, at least on this core team, to being here and being here enough hours in the week so that it's easy to coordinate with each other. This is kind of the rate, this is standard rate that we seem to have kind of locked onto, 21 die per hour. I'm proposing this idea. This is not an integral part of this proposal, but the idea of having some type of token options as a way to do a couple things. One, to help us just in general make it easier for people to stay over longer periods of time. And 2, to give people a sense of, not just a sense, but actual ownership, to help to make it easier for the people who are investing their blood, sweat, and tears into this entity to actually get a meaningful stake over time. And then, let's see. Welcome, Theta Gun. You're in this is not a steward's call. This is a TEC transformation call. So you're welcome. We're just kind of going through a plan right now to set up a new team for the TEC. So the next point is that having a fixed annual operating budget is important because it will help us to make sure that we can free up enough budget to fund some other things, like actually public goods, like getting back to, like this will allow us to say like, okay, then here's a sustainable level that we can actually use for returning to actually funding public goods again, right? So, and then there's some other options off that too, like in terms of like investing in things that might actually help to build token utility, like the curation service and some other services down the road. But this idea is that it's like, hey, let's fix the amount of money that we're spending on just the internal operations of the TEC. And so what this figure does is it pegs it to about 1/3 of what the burn rate has been since launch. So about 168, and these are rough. These are going to have to get detailed, a little bit more detailed. But basically it'd be about 14,000 die per month for this team. And I would be contributing 35 hours a week for the first year without charging. Okay, the last section here, I just want to, this is important because this is kind of where the culture comes in. The first thing I just, trying to point out that I think one of the things that we're really trying to focus on here is accountability and making sure that we have like really good accountability structures without trying to like replicate the old kind of like, I don't know, there's all kinds of words, but traditional management hierarchy structure, right? How do we do that? I'm personally very interested in this idea of self-directed work teams. I think that There's lots of people who've been doing great work on that. I experimented with that in my old organization. It's tough to do, but it's doable. And I think we could do it. I think it's very fitting. It kind of maps to the spirit of the DAO, DAO space. I think that, as part of that, one of the things that I'm recommending here is holding each other mutually accountable. So it's like if you don't have like a boss, right? How does the team hold itself mutually accountable to one another? One of the suggestions here is having an actual covenant that we all sign, and that we adopt the idea of graduated sanctions, right? And we really try to like adhere to the Ostrom's 8 principles in that covenant. And then the last section is like, hey, this doesn't mean that all work in the TEC needs to go into this team. Obviously, you've got the rewards working group still going, but beyond that, what this is saying is this is the team that will try to be kind of like the heartbeat, to act as a coordinator, to coordinate the various work processes and projects that are happening across the commons. And so, like what's happening in these calls, we've got people who might not be on that core team, this CommonOps team, but we want people to be able to contribute ideas and actual work. And so the idea would be coming up with processes, so this will be the next phase, coming up with processes to be able to more easily hold the contributions of other people who are coming into the community. And the second idea, and this is the last point and then I'll stop, is that it's also really important that we find ways to do, really what the rewards working group is doing with the praise quantification process. Like it's a set of workflows that are easy enough to understand that anybody can come in and with a little bit of training, just jump in and do it, right? We need more things like that. So actually, one of the reasons I was very excited about the praise, about the curation service, is that it's just that. It's like a really simple way for even like people on day one to come in and actually add value to them. So this is not about consolidating all contributions of value in the commons into this one team, but it is about setting up a team that will help to build coordination around all of those contributions of value. So with that, and last thing, CommonOps team is not the actual name for this. It's just what I came up with. I would like the team itself to name itself. So, okay, now let me stop and get some responses, questions, feedback.
I think that is very succinct and to the point, and given the kind of very dispersed discussions that we were having, the whole conundrum with that went on in transparency. That's why this is very like to the point, very much. Very much in favor of the way the ideology that the proposal sits on. I do have a question with praise, I guess, because the rewards board has basically voted in favor to cap the praise per contribution, which in essence, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mitch, but in essence, this will mean like after a couple of months, 60% reduction in praise per person until active. Yes, run thereabouts. Unless we were hitting the caps, in which case, that's something different. So I like I'm kind of on the fence as to what really means an active contributor and what means somebody that's kind of stuck in praise, let's say, because that has kind of been my situation somewhat by choice. I decided to not ask for much funding and just go by praise, and that's not going to be an option really going forward. So how fluid is the process going to be to, I don't know, open a task in Clarity, I assume, and kind of give it to somebody that hasn't somebody new, or yeah.
I think I get your idea. I get your question, Rex, which is basically how easy will it be for people to actually contribute if they're not on this core team, or this CommonOps team, whatever we call it. So that's kind of the next step in this is I've been doing some musing, and Bear has been helping out. I've gotten some feedback from Libby. Right now it's too complicated, the process, but it's basically figuring out a way to use advice process to basically sweep in all of the kind of new ideas, new projects that, and assess whether we have the resources to do them, whether we have the money to do it, whether we have the people to do it, and then kind of use that as a way for intaking new projects. So these meetings, I'm hoping, we'll come up with some good process to use these meetings as a way to actively do that. So new ideas, new projects can still come through. So still some work on that one, but that's kind of the rough idea.
No, it's just as part of the stuff I did for rewards, I kind of spoke to some of the disenfranchised guys. I went in and talked to some people that kind of left some of the working groups and tried to ask why. I don't know what made you take that decision, and it was overwhelmingly the difficulty that they were finding in the structure. That's some of them kind of turned it more ad hominem, but I'd say it was more of a I would more see it as a structural issue in that, you know, it was like once people were settled, it was there was basically not enough accountability, and the self-governance did not favor a distribution of funds, maybe somewhat towards the guys that were lively and wanting to play a bigger. So I'm just worried to not repeat that. But I think that we've learned our lesson and we'll come up with something.
I just wanted to add a little comment to that, Rex. I think you're very right in questioning like the role of the reward system and praise as we move forward with this. I think during the advice process, as we get more clarity on the definite structure and roles, and have a good understanding of our budget, we'll I think we can be able to use the reward system and our praise, and even if we choose to use it in a different way than we have been before, I think using it as a method to grant governance rights to newcomers who are kind of on the periphery, maybe making their first contributions to the TEC. Perhaps we use the reward system strictly for them. I think there are many ways that we can use the praise system that we have now, and we can use it in a different way, just depending on what emerges from the advice process. So I think that's something that compensation will have to come after we have a further kind of clarity on the structure.
Something I've been talking back and forth with Rex about the results of this praise analysis he did was that I think the problem is not so much the distribution or how we've been using praise, but our organizational structure and how it puts certain people and certain contributions on the spot. So I feel like in this transition, it would be very important for us to not commit the same mistake of having the stewards so much in the spot. Like everything we had happening in the TEC was around stewards' contributions. So we were the more visible, and the contributions received more praise. There was funding coming from the common pool plus funding coming from praise. And I think what I've been hearing for some time that we're talking about in this calls is that we want to be more out facing and focus more on the token engineering community, token engineering ecosystem. What are the contributions that we can integrate into our operations and how to minimize operation the max as possible. And something I felt with this proposal is that is somehow recreating a stewards team, but instead of having many working groups, having just one. So it feels like even more centralized than the structure we had before. I think it's great to have roles that different people are committed with, but I feel like we're losing some of the agency, bureaucracy, and the simplicity of advice process. I think the feedback I gave to that document you shared, Gideon, was that like advice process should be extremely simple, and it feels like there is a level, an unneeded level of complexity being added here.
So Livy, let me just jump in and say that document that I shared with you, that's just a very rough draft. I wanted to get your early take on that, and I got your feedback that it was too complicated. So that's different from this, though. It really is. I mean, I understand so advice process is one thing, and then I think your other critique here is centralization, right? That these are two separate issues. And
yeah, so not so separate, I think, because I feel like if we have a very simple advice process and a way for contributing, then we wouldn't have to have such a tight group. I think it's important to have a tight group, but I resonate with what Rex is bringing on. Like how can we bring more visibility to contributions that are not necessarily being done by the people that are hired to do things.
If I may jump in very quickly, I have some thoughts on this as well. I think for us moving forward, it's going to be very important to first live by the principle of subtraction, and like at the end of the day, this is a proposal for the core activities, and at least in my opinion, our work would be to make sure that the ecosystem grows by enable possibilities, and I think that sort of plugs into how other contributors could provide value, but then also with say Gideon proposed providing TEC options and stuff, and that if that ends up being the case, I think the people on the team should probably be opt out of praise, for example, and things like that. And yeah, I'm working on something as well. I would probably like to share next week or something that kind of goes in these lines too.
I just want to bring to the surface that I think that we have a kind of a divergent belief on the openness and permissionless nature of where we're heading with this transition process. It feels like some people want to keep it open, and some people want to close it up a little bit. And I think we really do need to come to consensus on this, because I think the entire transition process was made on the premise that what we had before, which is this kind of open permissionless DAO structure, was not beneficial to the actual commons at this moment in time. And I just think that's something that we really should find consensus on.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm not sure if others kind of idea. My belief is that it wasn't open either. So it may have been open. Like what we've had so far hasn't been largely open either. It may have been from an organizational point of view with kind of the ability to pass through a proposal, but the way in which the working groups organize themselves was not in openness. It has been mostly, those who built the working group are those who get that money, and it was very how can I put this? Like the cluster stayed very sticky, like the initial distribution and so on. Even as things changed, as other people came in and started contributing more, as those who originally joined the group could do less, at least in some working groups. So my question is not on the organizational structure. I believe that we've had a 60% reduction or something similar in activity. So it's very evident that we do need to scale back our operations, and the only way to do that is to do it in this way.
Hey Rex, I'm sorry to interject, but we have 1 minute left. So yeah, listen, I understand the concern, Livia, and what I would say is we can table this whole thing and pick it up again next week and continue this conversation, which is totally fine to do. What I would say though is just honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I feel like we need to move. Like we really need to move. And like we're just kind of spinning. Like it feels like over the last few weeks we've just been spinning. So not the last few weeks, but what I would ask is, if the concern is about how do we make sure that this remains open, then let's focus on that. Let's focus on making sure that we get good processes to make sure that the advice process is super clean, that we can actually make sure that this team is really focused on coordinating, right? And not being like the gatekeeper, right? That's not the intention behind this. But the idea is, how do we really focus and make sure that we can build synergy across all the contributions. But if we feel like, okay, because we need to close right now, let's just do a quick in the chat. If people can just say, this needs more conversation, or I'm good.
Can I make a quick suggestion?
Yeah.
Whoever has other ideas about this proposal, to fork it. And next week, we discuss the new proposals and do a quick voting on them, to which one we're going to move forward with.
Okay. I mean, yeah. Can we do it by what's the time?
By Tuesday?
Okay.
Got a fork already. Let's do it.
Okay. All right. So we'll stop there. If you have a proposal that you want to fork, just do it. Post it up on Stewards, and we'll talk about it next Tuesday. All right.
Thanks.
All right, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Gideon.